So most of us remember that first season we fell in love with the team. And maybe it was because your father or your grandfather were fans of that particular team. Maybe you grew up in that area. Mine was completely random. Um, didn't really just kind of fell into sports by myself. Older brother really didn't like them. Dad lived in another town for the majority of my formative years, at least getting really involved in sports. And I just, for whatever reason, started watching the NFL in the fall of 1979, and I fell in love with the LA Rams. And then what happens? Well, Pat Hayden breaks a finger. And if you're a diehard Rams fan, you know the rest is history. They win 4 consecutive games. They go to Super Bowl 14. What I remember about Super Bowl 14, sitting on an old couch, I did have my parents were there for the game. They had some friends over, and I remember they had friends over that were pulling for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, you got to remember in the late 70s, early 80s, everybody was either a Dallas Cowboy fan or a Pittsburgh Steeler fan. So I am there as a 7-year-old kid, really excited about the Rams at 9-7 in the regular season, making this Super Bowl run. And I've got other people there that are actually pulling for the Steelers. I just remember a back and forth game. I remember some incredible catches by Stallworth and Swan. And I remember the Steelers pulling away and getting that win, Super Bowl 14, the first taste the Rams had of the Super Bowl, of a Super Bowl berth in the Rose Bowl. Our next guest here on We Are Rambling, and we're going to try to catch up with as many former and current Rams as we possibly can. But this guy, an absolute legend in my mind, the first quarterback for me to truly pull for, it's Vince Ferragamo. And I want to remind you here on We Are Rambling, like and subscribe. Please share if you do like this. It is brought to you by our friends at Bowie. I drink a lot of water. I've always tried to drink around 100 ounces of liquids a day. Sometimes I fall short, but it wasn't until my girlfriend introduced me to Bowie. Bowie is absolutely awesome. Their hydration drops. I noticed what little bit of fat I got just drinking bottled water, tap water, maybe sports drinks per se. Bowie drops, unflavored liquid electrolytes, 87 trace minerals, deep ocean harvested, non-GMO, non-vegan, or they are vegan, I should say, purposely made without sugars, artificial ingredients, or additives to provide you with more energy and enhanced brain function. You can turn any drink into a functional beverage, and you can stay hydrated. Really simple with Bowie. All social media, just add Bowie, B-U-O-Y, just add Bowie. There's a link. They've got those new brain health drops. You're going to absolutely love the product. It is fantastic. Hopefully, you are going to love this sit down with the one, the only, the legend, Vince Ferragamo. Well, this is surreal. I am joined by LA Ram legend Vince Ferragamo, the first quarterback to ever take the Rams to a Super Bowl. I was telling you, Vince, in an earlier conversation, I think I feel really confident saying I'm probably the only kid in Birmingham, Alabama to have a Vince Ferragamo Huffy bike with the 15 across the tag there. But that's how big of a fan I was and still am for the Rams. But this is awesome. And just to let you know a little background on how you and I connected. So I'm in town. I'm at Westlake Village, Finney's. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yes, I have.
Watching
Yes.
Rams and Giants, very, very important game. I think the Rams were 8-7 at that point. They're going to New York. They're a slight favorite. It's one of those games you lose, you're probably out of the postseason. And I'm head to toe in Rams, and I'm going nuts. And my team that's with me, we're out there covering Alabama, Michigan for the Rose Bowl. This is New Year's Eve day. And I'm going nuts. And this guy dressed in orange starts talking to me, Big Dave.
Yeah,
Come
big
find
day.
out he's got an orange Tesla in the parking lot.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we start talking, and he's like, I'm really good friends with Vince Ferragamo. And so we've been trying to get this thing done for a long time now. So I do appreciate you jumping on with us.
Yeah, Big Dave and I are longtime friends. Lance, he's University of Tennessee boy and volunteers is everything with him. Everything is orange in his closet, and he's big time fan. But we became friends. We were both actors, actually. We were doing our acting classes when I retired from football, and that's where we met, and it was kind of fun. So, but yeah, it's good that we've crossed paths and we're doing this podcast. So,
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. It's funny. I came out, so I graduated from Alabama, the University of Alabama in 1995, and everybody thought I was crazy. Like day of, I packed up and drove west. I wanted to be an actor. And I see that you've got some credit. I didn't last long, trust me. That's tough business out there, as you know. Hawaii 5-0, First and 10, which I loved as a kid on HBO, and Dynasty. So you've got some credits there. What happened with the acting?
How'd you know that, man? You followed me pretty close. Yeah, no, those were fun stints. I enjoyed meeting a lot of people. I was on the Barbara Mandrell show once talking about Tennessee, and we went to Nashville for a children's hospital fundraiser. It was great fun, and met a lot of people, throughout my days. But yeah, the acting part was just another little wrinkle in what I've done, and it really actually helps you in the broadcasting field as well. And so we got into working with Jackie Slater, the Hall of Famer from the Rams, and I've done a podcast, and we were working with Fox when the Rams came back from St. Louis here to Los Angeles. So it's been a lot of fun, and but keeping up with the times and all these guys. But I have to tell you, Lance, so one of my biggest thrills was playing in the Barbara Sinatra Golf Classic for Children's Hospital in the desert, and the Frank Sinatra tournament was great. There was a lot of course, Italians involved, and a lot of celebrities, and I met a lot of great people. And one of my favorites was Jerry Vale, and obviously Rita and Jerry were close friends, and we became real good friends with those people. But so many different people you get to meet and those kind of things, and that's what it's all about. It's a friendship, it's the camaraderie that you build up, and if we can put those things together to help people, it's great fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know you're big into charitable organizations. I see guitars in your background. Did you ever meet Frank Sinatra?
We did in his first few years that he had it. I think I was invited in the third or fourth year that he was running in the desert, and had a chance to sit down with him and talk to him just briefly. But great guy, great giving guy, awesome, has so many great stories. But just all the people you meet is phenomenal. But yeah, and even in today's, after as a retired football player, looking back, I think it's not necessarily the accomplishments that you had on the field, but the people that you've come to know and become friends with. I think that's the biggest reward. And like I said earlier, all the things you can do to help others. So it's really a lot of fun.
So Phineas Banning High School in Los Angeles. You played for
Yes.
your brother Chris. What is it like to play for your brother?
It was tough, I tell you, Lance. It was my learning experience early on. I didn't know him as much of a brother as more of a coach, because he was 15 years older than I was. I was kind of a second thought in our family, but I was the youngest of four children that my mom and dad had, and born of Italian descent. I'm 100% Italian, and growing up in a household like that, there's, it's you learn respect, you learn how to work hard. And that's my dad was a Ford employee, became the president of the local union UAW here in Pico Rivera for many years for Ford Motor Company. So we were a we were a Ford family. But growing up as a kid, it was a struggle. I mean, every day, it was a fight, and you learn from your roots. And my brother was the same way. I mean, he went to military, went into the Marines, and then he came out and started coaching and started teaching. Was a good biology teacher. I never took a biology class from him during high school, but he was very strict. And it wasn't so much, he didn't even want to play me as a sophomore when I got to school. I was actually nominated by the assistant coaches because they wanted to do what was best for the team. But just because I was his brother, he felt it wasn't right to play me. But I ended up playing, and we went on and had a good high school career, and I'm glad I did. But I learned a lot of things. I learned how to compete, how to take nothing for granted, play with a chip on your shoulder. Had something to prove every time, because of that, because people wanted playing, and so I always had to be twice as good as the other my competition. So, but driving force. He was a very successful high school coach for 35 years. Football's always been in our family. Every time we get together in the family get together, it's always talking plays, and he's drawing up plays. And it's like, can never let this go. So,
If I
but
was
no, it was
talking,
it prepared me though, Lance, to answer your question. It really prepared me to go on to the next level. And I played some tough competition in Los Angeles, and we're in the Marine League. We played teams like Gardena and Carson High School, which were very difficult programs to beat. And we played against some of the guys. Even when I went to college, it seemed like it was a little easier in college than it was in high school because the guys were more evened out. But I think it really laid the groundwork for me to play to make a career in professional football.
if I told people you've got the first LA Ram quarterback that graduates from Phineas Banning High School in LA, but he might not be the best quarterback that ever graduated from there. I mean, Jamel Holloway was
Yeah.
a stud. I know you played in the Big Eight, but watching that kid, and I think he still remains the only freshman to win a national championship as a starting quarterback. How electrifying was that kid in high school, and how good would he be in today's game where it's all about getting out in space?
Yeah, Jamel was a guy. I know him really well. He's the one who forced Troy Aikman to go to UCLA. When he went to when he went to Oklahoma, and
That's a flex right there.
yeah, that's a big one. So I mean, Troy Aikman must have saw something there too, because Troy and I are close friends, and he's was a great player himself, Hall of Famer. But Jamal Holloway could do it all. We were just talking about him the other day, and somebody was mentioning, who played with him. He says, he could do anything. He could run, he could throw. He was versatile, good leader, great attitude. Yeah, great player, and when he goes to Oklahoma, he showed everybody what he can do, win a national championship.
So you signed with Cal out of high school. Did Steve Barkowski, was he in your same class? Was he before? Was he after? How did that work? And I can only imagine Justin Wilcox and Francisco Mendoza is a pretty good quarterback nobody knows about. But I guarantee you, Justin Wilcox, if he could have a quarterback room with you and Barkowski, boy,
Yeah.
those were the days back in Berkeley back in the mid 70s.
Yeah, it was funny. I went to Cal out of high school, almost went to Stanford, and that was a big ordeal getting that letter signed, but ended up at Cal. And then Barkowski was a year in front of me, and I was a freshman, and he was a sophomore. And they moved me up as a freshman the last 3 games of the season, and we beat Stanford on the last play. So obviously everything changed, the whole atmosphere changed, and I was on all the billboards and everything around town. And I think Bart was going to play baseball. He was a really good baseball player. I think he was a catcher, and he would decide to play baseball. But Mike White, who was the coach at the time, asked him to come out because all the other quarterbacks left camp. I was the only one in camp, and so they encouraged him to come back. He did come back, and we kind of split time. He was a junior, I was a sophomore, and then after my sophomore season, I think we went about 500 or something like that. And then I decided I was going to change, and we actually were slapped with a probation hit. We couldn't play in the Rose Bowl, and as a kid growing up in Southern California, the Rose Bowl, that's your dream, and that wasn't going to be a reality. So I decided I'm going to go to Nebraska. They were heavily recruited me out of high school, and I was going to make my decision myself at this point because I think I was kind of forced to, in a way, to go to school at Cal. And so I picked up myself, and I said, look, you're responsible for your own life, so make up your own decisions. So all my decisions were actually made for me as a kid growing up. But
Well, I told you I cover SEC football. I've been to Tiger Stadium and LSU in Baton Rouge, I don't know, 10, 15 times. And it is one of the top 1, 2, 3 environments, atmospheres in all of college football. And you guys, Nebraska, #1 to open the season, you go to Tiger Stadium. And this is how times have changed. I mean, people watching us, the millennials, the Gen Zs, they won't even believe this, but you guys walk out of there a 6-6 tie. There were ties back in the day. First of all, what was that atmosphere like coming West Coast and playing in Tiger Stadium? And was it a night game, by the way?
it was AJ Dewey, remember that name?
Oh yeah, Miami Dolphins, Killer
Yeah,
Bees.
he was the linebacker. He was all everything in that game. And I think we scored the first touchdown early in the game, and then they just blanked us the rest of the game. That's how tough they were on defense. Our defense was good as well. And we ended up in a 6-6 tie. So it was kind of distressing to us because we were slated to move on that year. But um we picked up the sticks, and we made progress afterwards. But moving to the Midwest, to go from Cal, which was a very liberal school, to a very conservative school like Nebraska, that was a big move. But I understood how the entire state and everything is centered around, Husker football. And to go to places like that, to go to places, in California we have a lot of different, you know there's there's so many different distractions going on in California. But when you get back there, it's just nothing but football. And our first game, actually traveling to LSU, I'd never been to LSU before. And yeah, it was, what is this called, the Snake Pit or something down there. It was tough. It was tough sledding. They were that good. Um, Hot, muggy. I mean, just like Nebraska was in the summer months. And but you know what? That's football. That's football. And to compete, not win the game, but we tried to pull out all the stops. And I think after that game, I think we started to become more, I think, skilled at throwing the football. Because when you run up against a really good team and they stop your run game, as the great teams can do, then you really have to have a prolific passing game. And I think Tom Osborne just saw what we had, and was going to utilize our talents, and that's what we ended up doing. And then we really made a big move, because not only could we run the football, we could really throw it at Nebraska.
So, I mean, it had to have been just amazing. You're sitting there, and again, the younger generation, they don't realize it. I remember getting checked out of school when I was in second grade to go home and watch like a Tuesday, Wednesday edition of ESPN's draft during the day. And now the draft is an animal all itself.
Mhm.
But you get the phone call and you get drafted by the hometown LA Rams, a team that you grew up cheering for. Did you know the call was coming? How was that process back then? Because obviously there's no cell phones. I guess you're just sitting on the couch with your family and friends, and the phone rings and it's the Rams.
Yeah, your early projections were to go in the first or second round. And, the first and second round came by, and I says, oh, shoot, I'm not going to get drafted. So I was disgusted. I went and started to work out. I went to work out. I came back about an hour later, and then I get a call from Chuck Knox, in Los Angeles. So it was more of a relief to see that you actually got drafted, that someone believed in you. And I ended up going to LA, which was a great place for me. They always had a quarterback controversy. And so I went there, and that same year as a rookie, they drafted myself. They had some great draft picks. They got Wendell Tyler, they got Billy Waddy, guys that starred for the Rams later on. And we made a difference on offense. We were young. We had a talented defense, veteran defense, and with little youth on offense, we put things together. But in Los Angeles, to play behind that offensive line, I have to tell you, Lance, probably one of the best offensive lines that was ever assembled. I mean, Rich Saul was my center. Right guard was Dennis Hara. Right tackle, Jackie Slater, Hall of Fame. Left tackle, Kent Hill from Georgia Tech. He could outrun anybody on the field. He's big, strong. And left tackle, Bubba France. And then Irv Pankey came on. I mean, it was like, these guys were so good. I mean, they were huge. What a stationary front up front. And we could run the football with those guys. We could pass. They could pass block. We did it all.
Until Tom Brady, maybe the most iconic player in NFL history, Joe Namath, and a guy that obviously played for Bear Bryant at Alabama. But you roll into camp there in LA, and Joe Namath is there. And look, and I know he was on his last leg, literally. But
Yeah.
what was the experience like going in and playing with a guy that, by the way, the last time the Jets won a Super Bowl III, a long time ago in 1969, he was the guy and he called his shot poolside. But what was that experience like?
1969. Well, I was a kid watching the Jets play, and man, they beat the Colts. That was awesome Super Bowl. But yeah, it was, as a thrill. I always like to learn from coaches and learn from other players, even guys that I competed against, and other guys that I watched play that I admired. And I used to have a keen eye to watch Terry Bradshaw, Daryl LaMonica, guys like that who could throw the football. And then the leadership of a Bart Starr, and then to actually play with a guy like Joe Namath, and watch his mannerisms, how he led the team, his characteristics, his charisma. I mean, that all plays a factor in the game. You look at guys like Patrick Mahomes today, Lance, and you just can't say enough. But their physical talent is one thing. Okay, they're phenomenal talent, but it's the makeup of the player. People don't understand. For a quarterback, it's the raw, ingredient that you have that's inbred in you that makes you fight, that makes you play right to the end. Doesn't matter, hurt or not hurt. And you get in there and perform. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, this kid, I really like watching him. He's a competitor first. And Andy Reid noticed it. He saw it early. I mean, he's been by his side the whole time. And look at how many championships they've had and how many games they've won. Tom Brady, another one of those guys that I admired the way he played because with a chip on his shoulder, he had something to prove after winning 6 Super Bowls. He still have something to prove.
Oh, hey, look,
Guys doubted me.
I
They
have
doubted my ability.
I have wasted money, Vince, going to see Tom Brady beat our Rams twice in Super Bowl. Super Bowl 36 in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I was not even worried. The Rams were a 13.5-point favorite. I still will stand by that is the best Rams team I've ever seen. They were 14-2 in the regular season. That was an incredible team with Marshall Faulk, and they go in, and you're right, played with his chip on his shoulder and was unbelievable. Speaking of injuries and quarterbacks, so I started really following football in the 1979 season. Randomly, being an East Coast guy or a Southern guy, I jumped on the Rams bandwagon. Pat Hayden breaks his finger. You come in, you said gritty, and that was kind of that Rams makeup on that team. But when he breaks his finger, there really wasn't Super Bowl expectations, but you guys kind of caught some momentum when you came in. I think you win 4 consecutive games. You beat Tampa 9-0 in the NFC Championship game. And then you mentioned the Rose Bowl, Super Bowl 14. You're actually the starting quarterback. I'm getting chills talking about this in your hometown. You never got to play in the Rose Bowl because of probation. Now you're the starting quarterback for the LA Rams against the dynastic Pittsburgh Steelers. You guys led for a good majority of the game. Just what was the experience like?
Yeah, they were a dynasty. You mentioned it. Probably one of the best teams I've ever seen play. I mean, even in this day today, I don't think there's any team in any era that could probably beat that team because they won 4 Super Bowls with pretty much the same players. Chuck Noll, they had 13 Hall of Famers on their team. The greatest thing about that team that we played, I mean, not only they always had that belief that they could win, and real great teams always had a belief. We had the same belief going into the game that we didn't have any second thoughts about, hey, can we beat these guys? We were going to go toe to toe with them and lay our chips out there. And so that's what made it a good game. Although they beat us by the spread at the end, but they could beat you defensively and they could beat you offensively. They could run the ball. We stopped their running game pretty much cold. The only their high percentage passes, we had those covered. The play they knew they can get is the deep bomb. They threw it 3 times against us, completed every pass.
Incredible catches from Stallworth and Lynn Swan.
I mean, that's everybody understands that, but then their defense could do whatever it took. If they had to blitz you, if they had to play the run, they had to play the pass, if they had to play prevent, they could do anything. It just depends on what we had. We just caught them off guard because they didn't really expect us to do what we did.
So that Super Bowl that Tom Brady wins his first in New Orleans, it was the first post 9/11 Super Bowl. So there was, security was, there was high alert. A lot of people were afraid to go to that Super Bowl. So I got a 50-yard line ticket for $600. Now, I am not going to tell you what I paid for the Super Bowl 53 13-3 loss in Atlanta to Tom Brady for tickets. But I wanted to ask you, being an LA hometown kid and playing in that Rose Bowl in 1980, I know you had to have a lot of demand for the Super Bowl ticket, but what could you get a Super Bowl ticket back in 1980 for?
Well, let me ask you a question. The median price of a quarterback in 1980 when we played, I was, maybe it was $100,000 to make a year, which was pretty decent money at the time. Some guys made 200 grand. It was probably closer to the average. I made 50,000 in 1980 when I was playing. That was my 4th year of my original contract. Guys make,
47,500, right?
huh?
I think it was 47,500 was the
That's right.
yeah.
40,000. Yeah, that's right. That was the base salary. Yeah. And so, when we went to the Super Bowl, we had a little bit of a of an incentive and a bonus, but that was added to it. But today you see how much these guys make, 50 million. Okay, they make 50 million a year. So our tickets, the face value of our tickets was $30 for a Super Bowl ticket at the Rose Bowl that year. Now, what do they go for? 3,000. So
Oh, you
it's
can't.
it's a sign of the times. I mean,
Yeah.
everything goes up in value. I happen to believe it's just a little bit too much, but I mean that's what they get. I mean, whatever the market will bear, that's what you do. It's just like
It,
real estate. I do real estate today, Lance, and real estate values are through the roof, but people seem to afford them, and it's like everything else. It's a different, you know, things have gone up in value.
it is amazing. You made 47,000 starting a Super Bowl, and you've got Tua Tagovailoa, another Alabama kid, who just signs for 53 million. He's never won a postseason game. He's injury prone. But you're right, supply and demand and what the market bears right now. But it is
Yeah,
pretty incredible what these quarterbacks are making.
yeah, make a lot
You
of money today.
you mentioned your friend Jackie Slater, and this is a guy that you can make an argument the greatest Ram of all time. And we just saw Aaron Donald retire at the end of last season.
Mhm.
Would you say Aaron Donald, Jackie Slater, maybe Eric Dickerson, a guy that you played with in the mid '80s as well? Who would be the greatest Ram of all time?
I have a hard time with the greatest of all time, the GOATs, because there are so many great players in their own respect that are very difficult to evaluate and say he's the number one best of all time. But I can give you a few guys on that list. Deacon Jones. I mean, I don't think that anyone feared that guy any more than on the Rams. Merlin Olsen, but they give each other credit for the entire front, the fearsome foursome, with Lamar Lundy and Rosie Greer. I mean, those guys were phenomenally good. How about the guys that played with me in Super Bowl? Freddie Dreyer, Larry Brooks, Mike Fanning, and Jack Youngblood. I mean, what a great front. I mean, you talk about defense. It all starts at the defensive line. That's where defenses start. Forget about the corners, the linebackers. They got to be good too. But if you can't put no pressure on the quarterback, the defensive backs are not going to look very good. So I don't care how good they are back there. And that's Aaron Donald was a dominant force. I mean, he was a dominant force. They're going to really miss him this year because you were always concerned. You not only had to put one guy against them, which could never block one-on-one, you'd have to put two, sometimes three. So you're eliminating, your team to block the other players on the defense. So yeah, he was incredible. His quickness, not necessarily his size, but his strength and quickness to get to the quarterback was truly amazing. There's not too many players that can play like that.
We were talking about your acting skills. Fred Dreyer, another guy that did Hunter, Merlin
Yeah.
Olsen. I mean, it looked like all LA Rams wanted to act. And I wanted to ask you this because one of my favorite films growing up, Heaven Can Wait. And I introduced my girlfriend to it a couple of weeks ago. I've still got it on DVD. It's just nostalgic for me, and it still holds up. I think it's a great movie. Warren Beatty, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know Deacon Jones was in it. And I think a lot of the Rams players were in it. But were you guys not in the middle of a preseason game and they film it and it's against the Pittsburgh Steelers and then you just happen to play the Steelers in the Super Bowl the same year? What do
Yeah.
you remember most about the production of Heaven Can Wait?
Well, that's a good question, Lance, because I had a guy call me just yesterday, just out of the blue. He says, "I'm watching Heaven Can Wait, man. I'm reliving your game." And it was almost like deja vu because they did that the year before. They even incredibly asked Warren Beatty at the end of that, his show, and prior to our Super Bowl, he says, "Who's going to win the Super Bowl?" He says, "Obviously the Rams because they won it and Heaven Can Wait." And they played Pittsburgh Steelers with a backup quarterback. I mean, everything was like deja vu. It was like, here it is. So yeah, it was incredible. It was kind of fun to, I do kind of remember some of the TV cameras and stuff hanging around the locker room and stuff, and they maybe taking some footage, but yeah, in our preseason. But I never put one and two together. We just look at game by game and week to week. So We struggled, as you mentioned earlier in that season, and then I got a chance to get in there and start playing, and things turned around. So it was chemistry. We have a really close knit team that year.
You mentioned real estate, mortgage. You've got companies in both. You're also in the vineyard business. A great Italian loves his wine.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I was doing a podcast this past fall with Brock Heward, who's one of the top analysts for Fox. And we were talking wine, and he's like, my brother Damon, who played in the league, he's got a really, really good cab passing time up in, I forgot what valley of Washington it is. Him and Dan Marino have that vineyard together. So they sent me a bottle of passing time, actually drank it on the air. It was fantastic.
Oh,
But
I'll
tell me
have
a
to
little
do
bit
that
about
with one.
tell me a little bit about your wine.
Well, you hit one of my favorite spots, I tell you, Lance, because right behind me in the yard, we're growing about 230 vines, which is Sangiovese, Cabernet, and Cabernet Franc. We've been growing it since 2008. We make a super Tuscan wine, so it's not totally Cabernet like a lot of people do, because Cabernet is a great grape. It grows well around the world. Unlike Italian wine varietals, they don't do very well outside their homeland. The only varietal that will probably grow fairly well is the Sangiovese grape. There's so many different cousins and varieties of Sangiovese, but I have kind of like a Chianti Classico and a Brunello, the Montalcino. It's some of them are Grasso, which is the fatter grapes. Some of them are the littler grapes. So I have a kind of a combination. And when we blend this wine together, it's done really well. And we just do it locally here in Orange Park Acres, here in Orange County. And I was probably one of the first ones to start growing grapes out in this area. So VinceFerragamoVineyards.com is our website, and we do have a few people that love the wine, but we've got 4 gold medals at the LA International Wine Competition, and that was a great thrill. But recently, I think the wines are developed even more. So I really like the 19, the 20, and the 21 are excellent years for us.
I'm a big red guy. So VinceFerragamo.com. Anybody watching this, make sure you log on, get some shipped to wherever you are around the world. Check it out. I can't wait to check it out myself.
I got to get you a bottle, Lance, so you can share it with your viewers at home.
Please
Yeah,
do. I would absolutely love that. Look, man, this has been such a good time. Before I let you roll, though, it was supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Rams last year. Matt Stafford goes out in that Dallas game. The Rams get run off the field. Brett Rippon comes in. At that point, it looked like the season was basically over. And then he comes back and was unbelievable. 6-2 in their final 8 games. They would have gotten past Detroit. Who knows what the Rams would have done. What is your expectation coming into 2024, though?
Well, that's because they got Cooper Kupp back in the lineup to go that 6-2. He was got hurt early in the season, and Puka Nacua is a phenomenal receiver. Young receiver, and Matt Stafford, is a good quarterback. I mean, he can do it all. So I think you put those ingredients together, you're going to have an explosive offense. And you got Sean McVay, who's done a great job with play calling and ingenuity, and I really love their line coach now. They got him from the New England Patriots. He's excellent, and so he's teaching these guys. It's more of a coach is a teacher first. And so you need to teach these guys a system. But I think one guy they're really going to miss is Aaron Donald, and I think it's going to hurt them some. I knew they were going to be around 10 wins and probably make the playoffs last year. And we were right, both Jackie and I. Jackie was a little bit more open to thinking they would be a little bit better, but I think they went 10-7 last year. And this year, I think, without that dominant player on defense, I think it's gonna, sometimes it's hard to outscore a team, even if you're really good and adept in offense. You have to have a defensive ploy. So I think everything's going to rely on their defense this year. So if their defense should step up and can control an offense when they have to, I think they'll be about what they were last year. Even they could be better. But if the defense does not step up, it's going to be a little more difficult for the Rams.
We are Ramley.
Other teams are getting better. They're actually getting better.
We are Ramley. He is LA Ram legend, Vince Ferragamo. It has been a fun time catching up with you, Vince. Really, really appreciate it, man.
Thanks a lot, Lance. Great job.
And there you go, Rams legend, Vince Ferragamo. one of many, many podcast interviews we're going to do right here on We Are Ramley. Make sure you like and subscribe, share this. Again, this is the first couple of episodes we've done. We're really excited about what is going to be, what is going to become of this channel. Again, like and subscribe, tell your friends. We've got Twitter, We Are Ramley, obviously this YouTube channel, We Are Ramley. Always brought to you by our friends at Mortgage Right. It doesn't matter where you are right now. If you're in Allentown, Pennsylvania, all the way to Anaheim, from Seattle to Sarasota, Florida, these guys, if you can hear my voice right now, they can take care of you, whether you're buying your first home or your final home, whether you've got a big down payment or you need zero financing. These guys can help you right now. Go to mortgageright.com. That's mortgageright.com. Mortgages done the right way. These are the professionals at Mortgage Right. More We Are Ramley coming soon. Make sure you like and subscribe.